When you get to the root of it, he's just a humble guy with a big heart.
He's just a compassionate person. He loves this industry, and he's just a good friend.
I have a great admiration for Don. If I had a brother, Don Quincey would probably be what I would think of as my brother.
Living and working on a ranch isn't always easy. But for fifth-generation Floridian and third-generation cattleman Don Quincey, ranch life is life. Born in Gainesville, Florida to Donald and Harleen Quincey, cattle made a big impression on Don Jr. at an early age.
My father was farming this land that we're on today. He decided to buy a feed store in town. And to do that, he had to sell the herd of mama cows that we had. They said when they started hauling them away that I was just crying profusely, and my grandfather comes over and says, why don't we let him keep 3 or 4 head of cattle? I'll put them with mine, and he can have the proceeds off the calves every year. So they did that. My grandfather kept them. They stayed there for a number of years. When I got of age that I could take them on my own and put them back on our property, that's how my cow herd started.
After graduating high school, Don's desire to serve his community led him away from the family's feed store to join the Levy County Sheriff's Office in 1975. While serving as a deputy was fulfilling, the old familiar ways of the ranch soon came calling.
My father asked me one day if I would come back and run a feed store for him, so that he had multiple units and he needed me. Well, it was good that my father came to me and needed my help instead of me always needing his help. So that was the beginning of a great relationship then from a business standpoint with my father that went on until his death.
The Quincey family sold their interest in the feed stores in 2003. Although it was the end of an era for Don, the change allowed him to focus all of his attention to Quincey Cattle Company, his cattle feeding operation located on his family's original ranch in Chiefland, Florida. Having greatly expanded the ranch over the years, today Don manages the day-to-day operations of the company with the help of his wife Donna and son Hunter. Expanding operations further, Quincey Cattle Company would initiate a heifer development program which utilized not only direct cattle feeding, but also rotational grazing. This program was a great success and would later prove to be equally effective with bulls and calves. While the new programs offered by Quincey Cattle Company were well received by its clients, Don continued to seek new ways to provide the high-quality beef that consumers demanded, but with a smaller carbon footprint. As a cow-calf state, Florida traditionally raised cattle in-state, then shipped them to the Midwest for harvesting. Don's vision was to feed cattle all the way through harvest without leaving Florida. Although first met with skepticism, Don was committed to the idea. He teamed up with a dozen like-minded ranchers across the state to bring fresh from Florida beef to the market.
Florida is one of the largest beef cow states in the country, and yet historically very few fed cattle were produced, high quality fed cattle were produced within that region. Well, Don's vision was to produce more of those high quality fed animals where every consumer in the state of Florida had the opportunity to have the same wonderful eating experience that others throughout the industry have had, and be able to support the Florida industry.
For his vision to be realized, Don needed to locate a suitable and sustainable source of feed. Turning to his community of farmers and producers, he found the solution, utilizing their rotational crops.
I would say 80% of everything we feed at Quincey Cattle Company comes within 30 miles of our ranch. We buy from our local farmers that produce corn, high moisture shell corn, earlage, sorghum, oats, haylage, a little bit of everything. So whatever we can buy locally, it not only helps our community, but it also helps us and it keeps our costs competitive.
He's reached out to corn farmers that are raising corn for the feedlot here at Quincey Cattle Company. So he is really working with them, not just their cattle producers across Florida, not just the people that he employs here on this ranch, but also the corn farmers. It's a kind of a soup to nuts operation here that he's affecting the economies of a lot more people than just those of us that feed cattle with Don Quincey here at his feedlot.
Working together with local farmers and producers, the Florida ranchers were able to find success raising and harvesting cattle on native land. Today, this fresh from Florida commodity can be found in restaurants and grocery stores across the state. The beef can also be found through direct and online sales, which proved to be a crucial lifeline for Don's community during the pandemic.
So when COVID came about, people were panic shopping. There was no food in the grocery store. Everybody was stressed out and, not really knowing what was going on. Don jumped right into action. We had a couple conversations, said, hey, do you think we can do this? And we started selling beef directly from the farm. So when there was a need in the community, Don stepped up and was willing to fill it. So he's big on community, big on being active within the community.
Don's penchant for leadership goes back to his role model, Don Sr. Don's father served on the board of directors for the Drummond Community Bank, a financial institution strongly tied to the local agricultural community. Upon his father's passing, Don took his father's seat, giving agriculture a voice on the board for 3 decades. Putting his leadership skills and decades of industry knowledge to work, Don has made impacts industry-wide. He's been a longtime member of the Levy County Cattlemen's Association, served on the board of directors for the Florida Beef Council, and was president of CattleFax from 2019 to 2020. He has held every electable position with the Florida Cattlemen's Association, serving as president from 2011 to 2012. In recognition of his efforts and commitment to the industry, Don was awarded the National Cattlemen's Beef Association Leadership Award in both 2015 and 2017. A staunch advocate for the cattle industry, Don has partnered with Florida A&M University and the University of Florida for years of research and multiple field trials. In 2011, his invaluable efforts were recognized when he was given the University of Florida College of Agricultural and Life Sciences Award of Distinction.
Over the years, he's done field trials. He's allowed tours of his operation across the board, from students to people in food service, to purveyors and distributors, all in an effort to educate the public on ranching, on farming, on our environmental stewardship practices, and our development of a safe, wholesome protein in beef.
Don does a great job as not only a spokesperson, but a mentor for all of these groups that come through, from 4-H groups to church groups, to Farm City Week groups with Farm Bureau, with Cattlemen's Leadership groups. He opens up this facility that we're on now. He can educate them on how we need to tell our story, because when you start telling that story to the youth of Florida and America of what we do, they buy into it.
He makes a huge impact on supporting the local FFAs, all the local kids, and then the state kids too. So he's a huge supporter of Florida agriculture, not just the beef industry, but Florida agriculture as a whole.
What we have seen here is when we invite people to our ranch that don't have any agriculture knowledge, they leave here with an awe of what we do and how well we keep things, in a way that we treat our land, the way that we treat our animals. They learn so much. And so the big thing is we just have not educated the consumer as much as we should have, because when they come here and they see it, they have a transformation.
As stewards of the land, Florida's farmers and ranchers have long understood the relationship between agriculture and the environment. For agriculture, improving management practices while protecting Florida's natural resources has been a priority. As chairman of the Suwannee River Water Management District for over a decade, Don showcased his ability to lead in this area.
His work there at the Water Management Board, he was always looking for new ways to preserve these lands. Don understands that we are more important than we look to the overall picture of Florida. Water quality is one of the most important things we can have in Florida.
The Water Management District was one of the things that I've done that I am very proud of. We need to have agriculture folks on our Water Management District boards throughout the state of Florida, because they're the ones that's going to bring to the table really a knowledge and understanding of how Florida agriculture works and what it means to wildlife, water quality, water quantity, springs, rivers. And nobody can do that like the agricultural community.
Well, Don, like many cattle ranchers, recognizes the importance of the environment and how cattle can enhance the environment. And if you look around his ranch, it's just a beautiful place for wildlife, and he protects the flora and fauna. And he's just a great example of how those two things can work together.
He's passionate about cattle and the stewardship of the cattle, and he's always had a long-term vision. His vision is that he wants to leave the country in much, much better shape than when he got there.
We absolutely are the first environmentalist. Agriculture as a whole depends on the environment. We are the stewards of the land. We want to make sure that we just have a really good place to make a living, but not only that, here's where we live. And we want to live in a place that has what we and our grandparents and our great-grandparents had during their life. Whether they're friends or family and people that have worked for me, I'm only here on their backs. And the folks that have came before me as agricultural leaders that have taught me and mentored me through the years, I come here on their backs.